My paper main objective was to measure and discuss the tension between the monetary poverty indicator and a multidimensional poverty measure for the Peruvian case. Peru enjoyed great economic expansion in the last 8 years, and the monetary poverty measure also showed great improvement. So my main concern was to see to what degree is this monetary poverty a good measure, or is it masking some important deprivations that haven't changed as quickly as the monetary poverty. Through these years, through these expansion years, although the monetary poverty dropped significantly, it left behind a lot of important deprivations. So to focus on the monetary poverty, to use monetary poverty as for targeting and for policy decisions could be an important mistake. And for an expansion context, I can see that it's the risk of making a mistake with monetary poverty is greater. The monetary measure left behind some important deprivations. Some of them were nutritional. Nutritional information, it's important, and income is not enough for households and for families to achieve a minimum appropriate calorie consumption. Also, access to health services doesn't move as fast as income, and dwelling conditions. For the Peruvian case, the access to appropriate sewage and appropriate water resource, where access to these important dwelling conditions did not change as fast as the monetary indicator, and the monetary indicator is not enough to show how these families are in reality accessing these basic dwelling necessities. For the implications of this for policymakers is that in the Peruvian case, it's very important to look at dwelling conditions and to look at the nutritional indicators, and the programs should focus more on these necessities and the fact that although there is more money, poor people cannot access and are still limited to access to these basic needs. The workshop is really important. On a personal level, I think for each researcher it's important to discuss its ideas and to share it with others. But I think the greater importance of this workshop lies in the fact that it helps to achieve the goal. If the goal of OFI is to contribute to human development and to look at multidimensional poverty, it makes basic sense that you use a multidimensional idiosyncratic approach to research multidimensional poverty. So this workshop is part of what I like about OFI, because OFI always works like this. OFI, at every project they have, they work with people from all around the world and with very different views. And I have taken part of this in previous research, and I can see that happening also in this workshop, that when different eyes look at the same problem, the solutions are more grounded, and you can see how how we quickly improve in the search for solutions and in the search for the right questions when we are looking at a multidimensional problem through a multi-idiosyncratic view. One of the most interesting things for me in this workshop is how we are trying to advance into more complicated and very significant methodological questions. There's a lot of debate, and there's growing debate, how to select the proper dimensions. There's a lot of debate on should some dimensions be taken off, should some variable be excluded if it's redundant or not. What is the framework to decide? Is it a normative framework? Is it a statistical framework? And what I have seen in the workshop is that the answer is difficult. It depends on the case, but there is a lot of trial and error. And right now, I can see how different people around the world are trying to solve this question and trying to solve this dramatic question of how do we approach the decision on what is to be a poor. I think in general it was what I expected, the difference between the multidimensional measure and the income measure. One can be surprised on how different these two are according to the country and to the context. And there is some level of surprise there, yet I can see how context is really important to understand the differences between both indicators. And I have also one good surprise is that I can see how the most optimistic countries, the poor countries that seem to be advancing the most, presents many times the greater difference between the multidimensional indicator and the poverty indicator and the monetary indicator. So it could be a surprise the degree in which these are different, but it makes a lot of sense that we see these countries improving really fast, but in an optimistic context, it takes more importance and more relevance. In an optimistic context, it becomes more relevant to be skeptical and to try to go deeper into the deprivations of the poor and the specific challenges that the poor need to face. And in the multidimensional poverty indicator, I see that we can have a greater understanding and a deeper understanding of what are the specific deprivations of the poor. So in a growing context, this question becomes a whole more important. I think it's extremely important for policymakers to focus on what's happening right now. There's been some agreement that the international monetary poverty line of $1.25 and $2 is not relevant right now. And we have with the MPI a better way to actually compare countries with different contexts and with different realities. So if we want to compare countries around the world and get questions of what makes a country advance more and others stay behind and in solving poverty, the MPI it's the great opportunity to look at this. Also, for policymakers, it gives the greater knowledge on what should they focus. We know that the great difficulty the policymaker the great difficult question that a policymaker usually faces is we have limited resources. So where should we use these limited resources? The MPI and this workshop discusses a lot of what are these areas, what are these deprivations that we need to focus, and we compare a lot the relationship between these deprivations, so we can see so we can know what are the specific deprivations that we need to focus, and if we focus on them, this will have a greater impact on all the other problems that the poor face. I think there's been important advance in this workshop, and we know that we have to go deeper into developing an appropriate methodology to ask what are the deprivations that we care about. So I think the MPI and the OFI is moving forward into developing a methodology to assess the question of what should we choose when we identify what makes a poor poor. I think that will be a great a future scope of research. I think OFI is already advancing in that sense, and I think there will be more. There will be also more future research on both on how can we compare very different countries, and also on how can we decide on what is important in this specific situation, and to difference both and to be able to compare both in a more robust way and and to be more confident of the validity of our results. I think OFIS are making a lot of work right now, and it will advance in the next years. There will be a lot of future advancement into this methodology and how to decide what is important.